Oh, this is JM Arlen. So I just thought I would record some of my thoughts on the book so far because we just passed the infamous bear scene, if you've ever heard of that one. But I kind of hyped up this scene in this chapter with Maney as being like a really important chapter because of the bear scene, which I said was like the most amazing bear scene you've ever seen in your life. Better than The Revenant, better than that movie with Anthony Hopkins, the best bear scene ever. But it's really not. It's not that great. It's really short. It's like 2 pages. But a lot of people to this day still think the bear scene is amazing. So I think that's funny. But I've also had people tell me that they think that the entire part of the book leading up to Maney's death, where she dies on the cliff, blown off by the wind, that everything leading up to that point should be cut. I've had one person say because I guess they just didn't like that the story started back in time with Maney. They probably would have preferred it start with Sean, which I can understand. I really like Sean's intro into the story. And it actually used to start with Sean in the very first version of the Crystal Keepers. Um, I used to have a scene of like a witch parade where Maney had died, and there was even a whole scene where some people found Maney and they saw her doing magic, and the whole town came up with pitchforks and torches and ran her off the cliff essentially, and that's when she was blown off by the wind. So it was like partially the wind and partially the townsfolk sort of coming after Maney for being the evil witch. And there was like a witch parade where, and Sean and his friend Spencer were at the witch parade, and I rewrote this beginning so many times. Like there's six distinct versions at least that were completely different from each other, and I just felt like, I need to find like a good one. So I just thought like, what would two teenagers want to look for? I'm like, okay, gold. How about, like who doesn't like gold, right? So that's the one I stuck with. But anyways, so that's some people think they just rather the story start with Sean, which I can understand. But I decided to go back more with Maney and just sort of flesh out her side because as I formed the story, I realized it was more Maney's story than Sean's. That Sean was more the side character, and Maney had the more unique and distinct, outlook and just the way her story unfolds. Um, and there was one other thing. Oh yeah, I remembered. Okay, so another person once told me that they wanted more of Maney on the run, like after she escaped from Denengir, from the point where she left the city until she is found by Daniel. And I agree, it would be cool. It'd be interesting to put more into that. I like to have there be this sort of escape, and she's like hiding in carriages and wagons to get farther and farther north, and like stowing away and things like that. And when she gets to Market Town, she's hiding in alleyways, and she's wearing hoods and things like that to keep herself secretive so no one knows who she is, while there's Royal Army soldiers pinning up posters of her and looking for her everywhere she goes. They would be cool. It would, but it feels like it's not exactly pivotal to the overall plot of the book. Like, it is important for Maney to feel like her actions are causing other people to get hurt. And that was the intention with Daniel, is that Daniel is this very innocent person. He's good natured, good hearted, and he helps her, because of his lost daughter. And so he helps Maney and ends up dying because of it. Ultimately, he doesn't survive, and that's like the price that Maney begins to see has to be paid in order for her to succeed at curing the disease and saving the Torchwings and things like that. Um, because she sees that it's costing other people around her. It's not like for what she believes in, other people are getting hurt, and that was an important thing for the story for later when Sean enters the story, um, because he begins to get hurt, and it really ties into Maney's ultimate decision to take, her fate and her future into her own hands and solve the problem her way. And so yeah, that's some of my thoughts. I really like this beginning with Maney personally. I think it's a really cool way to start the story. And another person I just want to say real quick. One person thought, I remember telling me like they were disappointed that the book started with the Reign of Crystals and then jumps ahead in time 1,000 years. They're like, "Oh, I want to see the world back here with the Reign of Crystals," and it's like, "We'll get there. We'll get there. Just be patient. The future of the Crystal Keepers is coming, and it's gonna involve all these cool things eventually." But anyway, so that's just my thoughts on this first section that we've covered so far. But tell me what you think in the comments down below. Like and subscribe. Yeah. Peace.